Usually Rainey's like first. I'm surprised it's not like him.
So while we wait for Rainey, my plan for tonight is that's why I wanted to start early at 5:30. I've got an outline that I'd like to run through regarding school opening, just to give the broad of where the whole thing is. And it's in my remarks for superintendent's report, and I'll also address the sports thing.
All right, so how about this? So you're gonna have paperwork, or you have a quorum, so can we have open session? Roll call, please.
Mr. Lawton?
Here.
Mr. Cologne?
Here.
Mrs. Saint-Amand?
Here.
Mr. DiMartino?
Here.
Great. We have a motion to go into executive session according to Rhode Island General Laws 42464.
Make a
and
motion.
42465. Motion by Lou.
Second.
Second by Sue. All in favor?
Aye.
Forrest, do you have that in front of you?
Sure. The mission statement reads, the West Warwick Public Schools, in partnership with the entire community, is dedicated to providing all learners with access and opportunity to a challenging, comprehensive education while developing 21st century skills in a personalized learning environment.
Thank you. Rainey, can you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
Sure. I pledge allegiance
To
to
the
the
flag
flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. We have a motion to seal the executive session minutes.
I'll
Make a
make
motion to seal.
second.
Motion seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Chairman's report?
That's you, big dog.
Steve.
I mean, I'm sorry, superintendent.
That's okay. Thanks, Steve. Well, good evening, everybody, and thanks for joining us here for the meeting tonight and for accommodating us moving it to a week later than we normally would meet. So my report tonight, I mean, obviously the hot topic on everybody's mind is going back to school, and what does it look like? Where are we at? What are we actually going to do? And tonight I just wanted to give you a brief update as to where we're at and what our plans are for the next couple of weeks to continue to plan and analyze what the needs of the district are. So as I've stated in each one of my weekly updates, this is an evolving process. Every week, sometimes daily, we get more information from the Department of Health or RIDE or the CDC. So our challenge has been working with that constant influx of new information, new guidance, new regulations, new rules we have to follow. Always at the forefront, it's the health and safety of our students, our staff, and what's best for the families in the community. That's why we've done so many layers of surveys. I think we've done 3 now to make sure we understand what is it people need? What is it that families need? How can we best serve our students, again, in the most healthy and safety way? So what happened last week, as I noted in my letter, the state held a few different meetings regarding facilities and new guidance from the CDC around air quality, ventilation, and airflow. So that's what we're digging deep into this week, along with a few other things I'll mention in a minute. All of our buildings are safe. All of our buildings meet the code and requirement for health and safety for school buildings. And we actually are above the required standard. So to Ken Townsend's credit and his department and his expertise around HVAC systems and facilities, whatever the standard is to pass for a school building, we always exceed that. So that's where we're starting. But part of the information that came last week has to do with air exchange in a classroom, in a school building. So that's what we're looking at this week as new information to us. The CDC has recommended a certain level of air exchange in a classroom and in a school building per hour. So we're looking at ways, again, we meet the standard, we're above the standard, but the requirement regarding the virus is even higher than that. So we're looking at now, how can we meet that standard with increased opportunities? For instance, they recommended box fans, leave windows open, use box fans and windows. So to, again, Kenny Townsend's credit, he's, been knee deep in that all week. So that's one of our newest challenges. And again, we're moving forward in our planning in a potential partial return. We know at this point we will not be able to return in full regarding the CDC guidelines. Again, we cannot meet the space requirements. Our buildings just aren't big enough. And our surveys tell us that a lot of parents and families don't intend to send their kids back right away in this school year anyways, for varying reasons. So we're still digging into that data. We're looking at how parents responded, whether they intend to use, consider a full distance learning model for their student, if they have needs for their student per an IEP, if the student needs to be in school for a certain amount of time or to receive certain services. So we're really drilling down into the data that we've gotten over the course of those 3 surveys. A couple of other things I just wanted to mention tonight. Our goals are always, again, I can't say it enough, health and safety first for students and staff. We know to meet the CDC guidance, we need to consider class sizes. So our goal and intent is to keep our class sizes as small as we possibly can if we do return in any kind of a partial return. Our intent is to keep families together as always. And we've really dove into our distance learning program and developing that. And a lot of really good ideas have surfaced already. And I only wish we had more time this summer to work on that versus some of the other things that we've had to address. But that's just how the guidance around reopening schools unfolded. So those are really not much of an update from the weekend, but we just wanted to let you know that that's what we are working on, and we're going to keep everybody posted. I just told the school committee in executive session that I intend to probably hold a couple of special school committee meetings in the upcoming couple of weeks before our regular September meeting, just to keep them informed about where we're at and what our recommendations will be at different points along the way in the next couple of weeks. Because I have every reason to think, because that's how this has played out, that things will change even more. And I don't know what that means, but weekly we have had updates, we've had changes. So I think it's really important at this point to keep the school committee updated weekly. So that's in very short. Again, nothing really new since my weekend update, but I did want to touch on sports. The Interscholastic League announced week before last that regarding fall sports, the only fall sports that will run will be boys and girls cross country, girls tennis, and game day cheer. All the other typical fall sports are on hold with the hopes that they'll run those in the spring. That's a huge disappointment to anybody who plays any of the other sports. Sports is such a big part of the educational experience and a community culture and a social experience for kids and the coaches and the adults. So that's hard news to deliver for sure. But we just want to, encourage everybody to hang in there, and hopefully the Interscholastic League, like I said, they really hope that we're in a position when we can run those more contact sports later on in the year or in the spring. So that's just a quick update on athletics. And that's it.
So Karen, just 2 points I wanted to make. The first is on the first part of what you explained with respect to the not being much of a change, but that you did we did have to now account for the air exchange and those types of things. Those are things, those topics. The reason why we don't have a solid answer is because I don't want to point the finger, but the state itself has kind of have this kind of like what Sue said in an executive session, which is just like a moving target. So you're trying to focus on this target that kind of moves a little on us. And so that's why we don't have a definite answer. I just want to do that. I want to mention that for the folks that are watching that may not necessarily know why you don't have an answer or we don't have something concrete to deliver to them. And the second part is we have heard, and we discussed this as well, you know, when you have the chair and people say, well, what are they going to cheer for? Well, cheerleading is a sport in and of itself that has its own competitions, and that's why they've deemed that that's allowable.
Right. It's the low or no contact sports that they've allowed to run, and game day cheer is different than competitive cheer, where they're really, you know, it's just a different
Format.
activity. Yep. Exactly right. Okay. So just back to your point about it's not about pointing fingers, but the reality is we are operating under direction from the state. And it's the governor's office, it's the Rhode Island Department of Health, and the Rhode Island Department of Education. We are under their purview. Like we have to wait for them to tell us what to do, and the CDC. So our hands are tied until we get direction from them, and that's been a big part of the delay in giving a response to an exact answer about what school opening will be. We've had to wait for answers, and then when we get the guidelines and the rules we have to follow, sometimes we can't meet them because we don't have space. Or
I know that not only myself but other you know, school committee members as well as yourself every day, and probably half the teachers are getting calls as to, hey, listen, what is really happening? Like, can you tell us? And I feel awful because I cannot say something concrete. But and if I was to say something today, there's a high probability that it might be different tomorrow. And so I don't want to be misunderstood for giving false information or not giving. I'd rather just let you continue to try to nail it down and let everyone work to do their specific jobs, and then we report. So I know that that's frustrating because Steve made that point known early on, and we've spoken about it as well, you know?
Yeah, frustrating for sure, because we know people need to plan, parents need to plan for
daycare, after school activity, everything.
You know, it's the middle of the end of August, and I think back, it's a million years ago, but when I was a kid, like by now, you were school shopping and getting ready, and you picture getting on the bus, and it's a horrible place for everybody to be, just this uncertainty. And I won't pretend to soft pedal that. Right. And, you know, I hope that message goes across to, you know, families and students and staff. We really are, and it's not just our district, it's every district. We had a superintendent meeting today, and every single district in the state is in the same position in terms of servicing their students in a healthy and safe way with the budget we have to work with. You know, the state, we don't have a confirmed state aid number yet.
I was going to say that's a very important point to make known to everyone as well.
It's a huge point, because we can have plans in place, but without the funding to back that up, we can't do it. That would be negligent. That would be not good practice. That would be operating on a deficit, which is not the right thing to do. And the COVID relief funds that were promised, we don't.
Just a promise. That's all it is a promise, right?
The applications are in, it's in the works, but we don't have that money yet. So it's a complicated scenario. I can tell you that everybody in the district is committed and working hard, and have been all summer with the constant shifting. And as soon as we have information or a definite, we absolutely will. And like I said, I think it makes sense that we meet as a school committee weekly at this point, just to make sure I can keep you guys up to speed, and we can let people know where things are at.
Okay,
Karen, thank you very much for your superintendent's report.
Yeah, no problem. And I just want to say we appreciate everybody's patience, and I can't say that enough. So thank you.
I mean, you spoke to the most important part as well, with the fact that we cannot operate in deficit. I mean, it's just illegal, frankly, to not get that, not have that concrete number and then just operate. You know,
yeah, it's irresponsible.
It's totally wrong. Okay. All right, Steve, sorry.
No problem. We all have to stick together. All right. Number 12, discussion approval consent agenda. A, open session minutes, July 15th, 2020. B, executive session minutes, July 15th, 2020. C, special meeting, open session minutes, August 5th, 2020. Special meeting, executive session minutes, August 5th, 2020. And finally, payment of bills, $2,489,312.53.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Motion by Sue, second by Lou. All in favor?
Aye.
Is Joe with us?
Joe is
I
with us.
am here.
Financial report. Hi, Joe.
Hi, how are you, everybody? Good evening.
Good, Joe.
Couple things. For the month of July, ending July 31st, 2020, for the FY21 budget, we've spent 2.3% of our budget. No surprise there. We're just getting started. I have no issues to bring forward at this point in time, but just like Karen said, that we're still waiting on our final state aid number. So that current budget for FY21 does represent a $1.9 million cut to state aid. Unless anybody has any questions on that, I can move on. No. I did want to give you a report for the school lunch deficit for FY20 at year end. The actual negative account balance was $45,571.93. Due to per school committee policy, that needs to be paid off to the food service fund at the end of the year. And this year we did it a little differently. We added one funding stream to help pay for that deficit. So of that, about just under $5,300 was related to preschool negative account balances. So we paid that out of the preschool account. What we did this year, the state says we cannot use any kind of proceeds that has any kind of federal funding involved to pay off these deficit accounts. So this year we tracked our a la carte expenditures, which are packaged food items that have nothing to do with federal funding at all. It's just packaged food that we get and resell to the kids. From that, we had a profit of $30,050 that we could use to help pay off that some of that deficit, a big portion of that deficit. And we'll probably continue to do that practice as long as we can. So the only liability to the general fund last year was $10,238.60. So we're able to kind of make up some of those deficit funds, so we're not hitting the general fund as difficult, as intensely. FY21 budget does include a $25,000 line for that negative balance for next year, just so you know.
Great.
Just a little bit of an update on the projected year-end FY20. As you recall, due to distance learning, we had a substantial savings in our transportation lines, and the school committee approved the spending of $398,000 of that surplus that we anticipated for some technology purchases and for some personal protection equipment in preparing for FY21. At that time, when we did this, we were informed by the state that our state aid for FY20 would not be cut, and any additional revenue that we get through any kind of federal funds would be applied towards FY21. Well, as we know, after the purchases were made, the state came out and cut our FY21 expenditures by just under $1 million. So because of that cut, we currently, now this number is going to fluctuate because we're still waiting on some revenue and some expenses to come in. We currently are projecting, if we don't make up that revenue source, $280,000 deficit. We are in the process of applying for two funding sources to make up the just under $1 million that they cut us. We will be awarded some funds under the Elementary and Secondary Education Relief Fund, ESSER. These are federal funds that have to be used through, another typo, it's not June 30th of 22, it's September 30th of 22. And those can be backfilled. We can use those funds to backfill all the cuts if we need to. Because the award was allocated to the districts based on Title I requirements, we are obligated to provide a proportionate share to the three private schools in our district, which are the Islamic School, St. Joseph's, and the Tide School. The only two that did express the interest and desire to participate in the funding is the Islamic School and St. Joseph's. So their proportionate share combined is about $66,000. So if we were to backfill everything with ESSER to make up the funding we lost in FY20, we would still see a reduction or a loss of $66,000 because the way it was allocated.
So Joe, quick question with respect to
Sure.
that. I just want to do it now while I remember. With respect, excuse me, to the fact that we used 300 or a portion of the 300 and change for PPE things, are there funds that were available or that are made available through the governor and through the state that will allow us to backfill that particular section?
Absolutely, because what I'll go into the next section. It kind of goes into that a little bit, Louis.
Thank you.
We've also been awarded coronavirus relief fund, CRF funding, and that total award, once the application is done and it's given to us, is $1,152,271. And those can be used, and even the ESSER funds can be used. Those can be used only specifically for COVID-19 related expenses from March. I don't know if it's March 1st or March 15th. One of them is one, one's the other.
31st.
All the way through to the end of December 31st. And once, if we don't use it by December 31st, we lose it. But that's not even going to happen, believe me, because like I said in my report, it's still not enough. You know, it's a good chunk of money, but it's not going to, it's intended for the opening of school, and to say $1 million is going to help get us to open up the schools under the new requirements is kind of laughable. It's a huge expense to us.
Sure.
So yes, we can use those funds, Louis, to answer your question, and we will. That's what my plan is to, once I have a final deficit number and I know exactly what we're doing, I'm going to try to use the CRF funds first because those expire quickly. And I'll use the ESSER funds to make up any difference. So if anything, we may have a very small surplus, 10, 20,000, I'm hoping is all I can do.
But can you use ESSER funds for something other than filling that void, and you fill the void first with the COVID relief funds, because then you could use the ESSER somewhere else?
That's right. That's exactly what I'm doing.
Okay.
Because we spent I believe it's about $102,000 in COVID-related expenses.
Okay, great.
We could use the CRF funds on.
Okay.
The rest we'll use the ESSER funds
Okay.
to maybe make up some transportation cost expense, or I think that's how I'm putting it through in the application.
Okay,
So
perfect.
yeah, definitely use the CRF. So basically, it reduces our overall funding. We're going to be reduced by about.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't help the fact that they hit us for $1 million, but
No,
I mean,
no.
but at least, as far as we're concerned, financially, we're being fiscally responsible to ourselves, to the district, and to everyone else. That's really what it's about from our end,
Yep, exactly. And,
Okay.
And it just reduces the amount of funding that's going to be available through these grants for FY21.
Right.
With any luck, we're still going to be funded fully in FY21 like we hope, but that is yet to be determined.
Sure.
So just so you know, and then both those applications, they're in process. I'll actually be reviewing them with Karen soon, and I'll be submitting those for, they claim there's a 48-hour turnaround at RIDE to get that approval. I'll let you know if that really happens.
Thank you, Joe.
You're welcome.
And I just want to give a shout out to Joe. This is really, they've made this very complicated. It's, the funding and the give and take, and the application process is not easy. And I just want to thank Joe publicly for keeping his nose to the grindstone always, but especially on this. Because it's that critically important and it's complicated. So thank you, Joe.
Thanks,
Thank
Joe.
you.
Thank you. Joe, before you go, Joe
Yes.
Balducci said hello.
I talk to him often.
We'll talk later.
So we have to make a motion. I'll make a motion to accept the financial report.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Great. Okay, 14, discussion action first student contract.
Okay, members of the school committee, I recommend that there be a discussion/action of the first student contract. And I'll ask Aubrey Lombardo if you want to jump in and explain.
Sure. So this is the issue of first student asking us to amend our contract to guarantee that we would pay them the full amount for every scheduled bus, as in a prior school year, as if school was running normally. My recommendation would be that we exercise the force majeure clause in the contract and say, have me send a legal response to their legal counsel saying that we will pay for services that we utilize only.
I'll make a motion to accept that recommendation.
I'll second.
Steve, take yourself off, buddy. There you go. I read your lips. I heard you say all in favor and aye.
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 Steve, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Oh, thank you. Let's go.
All right. 15, discussion approval, second reading of several policies.
Okay, we've got several here, so we'll do one at a time. Members of the school committee, I recommend that there be a discussion/approval of the second reading of the following policies. And the first one is IVE7 graduation exercises. And I recommend that we delete this. It's, many of these tonight are policies we don't need because they exist in law, the circumstances. And so in our attempt to clean up our 9,000 page school committee policy. This is one of the ones that there's a Rhode Island general law that covers this piece.
I make a motion.
Okay. Motion by Lou, second, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, the next one is IVEG, miscellaneous instructional policies. And again, there's just a couple of, just one actually, change there. And again, that piece is covered under Rhode Island general law. And it's the part where teachers shall also provide time for a moment of silent meditation. So we don't need our own policy on that in terms of that piece of it.
We have a motion.
I'll make a motion.
Motion by Sue,
Second.
seconded, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, the next one is 5A4, non-resident students. And I recommend that we delete this.
I'll make a motion.
Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. D, tuition students.
D is tuition students, and I also recommend that we delete that.
All right, so moved.
Second.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And E is 5A6, non-tuition students. Again, I recommend we delete that.
Make a motion.
Motion,
Second.
second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
F is 5A11, lockers and locks. And we recommend, the only update to this or revision is just the review date. So we keep the policy, just update the review date.
We have a motion?
Make a motion.
Second.
Motion, second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. G,
G, 5A16, policy on students infected with HIV. And I recommend that we delete this because again, this language is found in Rhode Island, I
think this one's just a little outdated, Karen. I think it was written a long time ago and it's not appropriate. In 2020, the science has changed,
Right.
and it's no longer needed.
Perfect.
Okay.
okay.
Make a motion to be deleted.
That's
Motion
second.
by Lou, second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Last one is H.
Okay, H, 5B7, freedom of speech. And I recommend that this be deleted. And again, we find this in Rhode Island general law.
Make a
All
motion.
right.
Motion,
And a
second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Great. Acceptance of a resignation, special education, self-contained, severe, profound teacher, transition program, life skills, vocational, ages 18 to 21 at Maisie Quinn School.
Members of the school committee, I recommend with regret that you accept the resignation of Kalina Lottie, a special education, self-contained, severe and profound teacher in the transition program, the life skills vocational program for ages 18 to 21 at Maisie Quinn School, effective 8/7/20.
Make a motion.
And a second.
And
Any questions?
I was just gonna say that to do any of these jobs on a one-on-one basis is just something that should be respected in and of itself. I give my number to Macy Quinn. so that they can call me if they have any issues with any of my football players in town. And they've called me a couple of times, and I've stopped in to make special visits. And what they do one-on-one, the teacher almost cried. I got choked up. I shed a tear too. And so it is a difficult path, and it's a tough job, and they go in every day and do it. So I just want to thank you for that.
Great.
Thanks so much.
All right.
Did we vote on
Make
the
a motion.
resignation?
I make a motion for the acceptance of resignation.
Motion? Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
You
Announcement
guys
of new
gotta learn
hires?
how to read Aubrey's eyes, you know. Go ahead.
New hires, Karen? We have any new hires?
We do. We have a few. So, oh, my monitor just went off. I'm sorry. Oh, hold on. Technical issue here. Oh, I'll find it.
I got them if you need them.
Yeah, I don't know why. I'm sorry. I just lost my screen.
You can read them, Steve. That's fine.
Want me to read them?
If
Yeah.
you would, unless I'm
All right,
sorry.
here goes. Positions awarded as of August 18th. Temporary COVID-19 medical point person at the West Warwick Public Schools, Rebecca Hanley.
And if I could just comment on that really quick. One of the requirements for reopening schools is that we had to hire a medical point person, somebody specifically with a medical background to handle our COVID-related policies, procedures, make sure the school nurse teachers have and know what they need. And so our good fortune is that Becky Handy, who was a school nurse teacher in the district for several years, just recently retired. And so we reached out to her to see if she could help us out. And
Hold it back in.
more than I say that all the time. We never really let people go. So thank you to Becky for jumping in with us.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
Next one's a long-term substitute special education self-contained teacher at Greenbush. That's Amanda Egan. Next, we have a part-time lunch monitor teacher assistant floater at Greenbush, and that is Shanice Kuhn.
Mhm.
The next one is a part-time second shift custodian at Wakefield Hills, Matthew Grenier. Next one's a head girls tennis coach at the high school, Matt Gamadella, ex-alumni.
Yep.
Good tennis player too.
Yep.
Next is head co-ed cheerleading coach at the high school, Taylor Gargano.
Yep.
And last but not least, assistant co-ed cheerleading coach at the high school, Ariana Witherspoon.
Right. And it's always so great to see the relatively recent graduates come back. So the Wizards never really leave. So.
I think they all are. Matt,
Yeah.
Matt, Taylor, and Ariana.
Witherspoon, Taylor, Matt, yeah.
Congratulations to the Wizards.
Thank you. Yeah. Thank you, Steve.
All right. Last but not least, audience and citizens, if there's anybody out there would like to say a few words, this is usually the time when Mr. Doyle has something to say. Sean?
No pressure, Sean. No pressure.
Unmute yourself, bud. There we go.
Okay, thank you,
There he
Mr.
is.
Cologne. I do have something to say tonight, but first, I need to comment on Mr. Cologne's comments at the beginning. And I don't know what's going on. Maybe it's COVID related and isolation, but I'm going to agree with him for the second time in 2 meetings.
I'm gaining traction.
But the notion that cheerleaders are supposed to merely cheer for male athletes is antiquated and, dare I say, misogynistic. And I agree with you 100% that that group of students are outright athletes and they've won multiple awards and they're very good at what they do. So I think it's kudos to you for calling that out. More related to what we're dealing with in the district, I just want to extend my gratitude to the district and the administrative leadership, the superintendent and the school committee as well, because we talk all the time how equity is different than equal. If we treat everyone equally, we're still leaving people behind. And I think the plan we're focusing on is going to focus on equity and lending a hand to those who need the biggest boost first. Because we can't bring everyone back, in my opinion. It's clearly not safe.
Yeah.
And even by doing so will cause probably more harm than good in the very short run. But by focusing on those students who need the most support for whatever that reason is, then I think we can do some good work with kids in our community and for families. And I guess the last thing, just to kind of put this in perspective, someone pointed this out to me today. We were talking about the Vietnam War Memorial, and I remember standing in front of the War Memorial and just being totally gripped by it. It's so solemn. You hear nothing. It looks like it goes on forever. And fun fact, the War Memorial is almost the length of a football field, and at its peak, it's 10 feet tall. If we built a similar memorial for Americans who lost their lives to COVID, we'd need 3 football fields.
Wow.
It's real.
It is real.
Real.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Sean.
Sean. Thanks very much.
Thanks, Sean.
All right, can we have a motion for adjournment?
Make a motion to adjourn.
Motion, second? All in favor?
All right.
Aye. Stay
Thank
safe,
you.
everyone. See you next week.
Stay safe, everybody.
Stay safe.
Bye-bye.
Okay.